Okay, so we are on day two of Mishlei 1518. I'm a little oddly nervous about it. I kind of expressed that in the shiur in the blurb. Um, I want to state my nervousness just to get it out on the table, and because it might affect the way we approach this. Is I felt yesterday like basically this is just a topic that brought up, you know, this is a puzzle that brought up the topics of anger and slowness to anger, and it just felt way too general. And it's not like the ideas that we were saying were bad, but I feel like I really crave specificity in like trying to figure out like what the address of this puzzle is or what the decision making scenario is. So that's what I'm going to be on the lookout for. I strongly like. It's possible that this is just a puzzle about how anger leads to contentiousness, but like I don't know. See, this is the problem with Mishlei with like learning Mishlei a lot is that I do insist on there being chidushim, and I recognize that Mishlei is written for the Pesi, the Na'ar, the Chacham, and the Navon. So like I know that for them, a Chiddush is not necessarily the same thing as it is for me. So this could easily just be like a Chiddush because maybe someone hasn't thought about the fact that like if you have a contentious personality or a wrathful personality, then you're going to end up like starting fights. But I'm looking for something more of a Chiddush. But I don't know if that's a not irrational demand, a unwarranted demand on my part. So that's like my conflict, which I'm saying from the get go. Okay, so having said that, ish chema yigare madon of erachapayim yashkit riv. A hot-tempered person incites or stirs up conflict, but a person who is slow to anger will quiet quarrel. All right, so our questions were what is the subject of this pasuk? What is the decision-making scenario? Are we talking about the same scenario in each half as most Mishlei psukim do, or does Yigare Madon imply that there was no Madon at all, and then Yashkit Riv implies that the Riv already existed, in which case we'd be talking about two different scenarios, and more focusing on the character trait. Okay, three, this seems obvious. Anyone who knows a short-tempered person will see that they stir up conflict. Four, what is chema? And in fact, let's just merge these two questions. What is schema? Oh no, sorry. What is schema? Um, is schema different from af? Okay. That's funny. Side note, just so you're aware of it. So I usually give a Mishlei shir, a Pirkei Avos shir to women on Thursday nights. But because I'm in Florida visiting my dad, then Jessie Fishbein is taking over it, and she's giving a shir on Moshe leaving Paro B'chari Af, in which we usually translate as like in burning wrath or burning anger. So there's Ibn Kaspi on that where he talks about how Af Chari Af does not mean anger; it means passion. And in I think even in Old English, passionate and angry were often used as synonyms. Like if you said like we say a passionate person, and we think of someone who just like is very has strong feelings or maybe even like romantic, like passionately in love. But I think in older English, I think passionate meant angry in the same way as like pathetic we used to mean like sad or like deplorable, but pathetic used to mean sad. Like actually like being sad. Yeah, Ezra.
Also, the word excited. A lot of people,
Yeah,
like back then, it was also more of like,
right. That's a good
don't get
point.
excited about it.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So I do I only because that was on my mind. I want to be aware of the fact. And also Ibn Kaspi says that Moshe was not angry. I think he ends up saying that Moshe was like giddy at leaving Paro. I think because I didn't look into Ashita at length, but like he said that like Moshe knew that Hashem was totally in control, and there's no reason to get angry. And it's also just weird to say that Moshe got angry at Paro. Like Moshe's not one to get angry. So I just wanted to like mention that in case it's relevant here because I think we did see in the Targum maybe that Unigid Rucha, one who restrains his spirit, quiets strife, and Ruach is sometimes it means anger, sometimes it means like passion. So anyway, just want to say that. Yeah, so is chema different from off? Okay. Five, what is Erech Apayim? What is implied by Erech as opposed to no off? And I'm just going to elaborate on the question, which I said verbally yesterday, is does, oh, hold on a second here. Does Erech Apayim mean slow to or like I guess mean like that you get angry, but you don't act on it until after a delay? Or does it mean that it takes a lot to get you angry, which Chazal call kashe lichos, you know? So I think there are two shitos for Erech Apayim here. And then what is implied by Erech as opposed to Noach? Like it seems like both members of the pasuk, or both people in the pasuk, do get angry, but either with a delay or like it takes a lot. Versus, we could be talking about someone who just never gets angry, but it seems like the pasuk's not addressing that. Six, what is an ish chema? What is the relationship between the person and the chema such that we characterize him that way? Is it due to the frequency, the intensity, the primacy in interactions, etc.? I mean, why do we characterize him that way? Seven, what is the difference between madon and reeve, if such a distant difference exists? Right. Okay, fine. Eight, how does the ish chema yigare madon? How does he do it? Nine, what is meant by yashkid reeve? Is it to eliminate, to reduce, to make actual peace? I'm going to say also to avoid, you know. 10, how does the ish erech apayim yashkid reeve? 11, are the two halves opposites? Why is erech apayim the opposite of chema? Why not contrast chema with not getting angry at all? 12, what causes the ish chema to be the way he is? Generally speaking, conflict is something that is painful or not enjoyable. So people who live amid conflict experience frustration. Does he not realize this? Does he like the conflict? Does he feel like he's gaining something in exchange? And also, what makes the Erech Apayim the way he is? Is he avoiding, like, in other words, is he consciously consciously, you know, it's my keyboard has been acting up today. It's keystrokes are not registering. I don't know if that's a software thing or what. I don't know if I did have an update. That's weird. All right, anyway, is he consciously like choosing Erech Apayim because of the advantages it affords, or is this just his temperament? Yeah, or something else. 13, who is the intended audience? Is it talking to the would-be inciter or quieter, or is it to the bystander or victim? And what's the practical application? Okay, so that was a good, thorough review of the questions. Okay, now I feel like recharged with that. Okay, so our review of the ideas yesterday. Isaac said the basic idea is that there are two extremes of people. The ish chema will stir up conflict when there's none there, because of who he is, and then the Erech Apayim person, even when he's confronted with a conflict, will diminish its intensity because of his temperament. Yeah, Isaac?
I want to actually modify my idea
Sure.
in a way that I think makes the subject of the pasuk a little more localized.
Okay.
That the ish chema is not that maybe he's not stirring up conflict, but he's amplifying conflict. And the subject of the pasuk is about how when a person's faced with conflict, their personality is going to either like the way that they handle it will either make it more intense, like Igara, or quiet it, like dampen it. Not it doesn't mean there's not going to be. It doesn't mean there's going to extinguish conflict or
Right.
generate new conflict, but just by how they handle it, it'll
Right.
either diffuse it or intensify it.
Yeah, I think I said this yesterday, but I want to just reiterate it. I think I first heard this on a guest on Tim Ferriss who was talking about parenting, but it's not the episode that I sent to everyone or that I wrote about. Which is he said that when he had like I think two young boys who would fight, and he would always say like I think when the older sibling was being provoked by the younger sibling, he would say, do you want to add fuel to the fire or add water? You know, and given what Isaac said, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to extinguish it, but if you throw water on a fire, then it can like make it die down. You know, and I think that that's a good muscle. And it's a good way to ask yourself also, like when you're about to respond, am I adding fuel or am I adding water? I feel like there are people who we see, adding fuel, and they clearly don't realize that they're adding fuel, but we see like, why are you just stoking this? So I think it's a good question to ask yourself to stop yourself.
Yeah. So just to add to that,
Yeah.
I think the exact lesson he uses is like is pouring gasoline on the fire, which I feel like is a little more concrete. It's
Right.
not just like, because it's causing it to if you pour gasoline on a fire, it's gonna be like a huge combustion.
Right. Yeah. Okay, that's a good point. Okay, so then we asked further yesterday, why, or what causes this? How does it work? So, so we noted. I don't think this is an answer necessarily, but the Ishlema probably doesn't think he's causing the conflict. Or I guess now just, I guess amplifying, if you want to modify it, amplifying the conflict, but ascribes the cause to someone else and sees himself as I'm going to put this in quotations, just reacting. I'm just reacting. Like that. That's it. I'm not doing anything to this. Like, for example, I think this is another a good example of this is in the cesspool that Twitter has become. And I mean this is always true, but like I think it's gotten worse. Is I think there are people who will retweet or who will share social media posts, not realizing that they are part of the problem in amplifying the anger and the conflict surrounding the issue. I'm just like sharing, but no, they're actually like stoking it. And then David added that if you are a third party, you should be aware of how each of these other two guys, meaning the Erchapaim or the Ishchema, are filtering the objective issue through their subjective manner of relating to the conflict. Neither is responding to the thing as it is. And I actually want to add to this here, which is, okay, I'll ask this as a question. Is there such a thing as the thing as it is? And I'm not asking that in a Kantian way, but like, meaning David was saying how like there's the issue and then there's the way that the people are filtering it. I think you can make an argument that conflict is not an objective reality. Conflict exists because of the way that the two people respond to the thing. Like there's no, like, for example, like I'll use here's a fire example is when the LA fires broke out, there was a lot of conflict about whether do we blame democratic governance and bad policies, or do we blame climate change, or do we blame but the fire is not a conflict. The fire is the objective reality, okay? But what people bring to that is what creates the conflict. So maybe that's the proper way to look at it. I don't know. I'm throwing this out as an actual question. You hear what I'm saying? Like, or take like here's an easier example, right? In a marriage, okay? There's conflicts that arise, big and small, okay? But I don't know if it's proper to say that like there's the conflict and then there's what people bring to it. I think what people bring to it is the conflict, and yes, you could be more objective about how you look at the facts and you could be more subjective in how you filter it, but I don't think it's proper to speak of it as though it's a phenomenon that actually objectively exists, because conflict does not exist in reality. What do you think?
Since Dove's not here, I can say that I would agree with that.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think
Yeah.
if you're gonna have two different players in this pasuk who are having like different sides of conflict, or I guess in this case not a conflict, but different ways of like filtering it, like it would either be a conflict or not a conflict based on
Right.
which player is relating to it.
Right. Yeah. So I think this strengthens David's point, okay? Because he's saying that what this is what you make of it. It's not like there is a conflict here, and you can either I mean, I'm not denying Isaac's idea. I think, like, practically speaking, you have to treat it as though there's a conflict, and then you could either amplify it or dampen it. But I think, like, in reality, there is no such thing as conflicts. Reality is reality, and it's only once either egos or decision making gets involved, meaning something that causes you to take a side. It's only once ego or decision making gets involved, which like involves, which I guess produces, sides, that the conflict comes into being. Okay, I think we might have stumbled onto something that is an actual chidush. You know, I'm thinking now about shalom. I'll just throw that out there. Shalom and his relationship with God. Talk amongst yourselves about it. No, I mean, like, what's the you see where I'm going with this? Meaning, like, yeah,
You're saying like
Isaac,
I know he's shown
or yeah, go
on
ahead,
the
Isaac.
property. I'd say combining this with my idea,
Yeah,
that the you know the whole like intensity of the conflict is
yeah,
like purely from like the way that the two parties are approaching it.
right.
Like I remember, that's a like to my own horn, but I remember after like maybe like a year of being married or something like that, reflecting on how like I was like I don't feel like Aviva and I have like ever fought, and then I was like no, there were times where we had like disagreements and we were like kind of like unhappy with each other and things like that, but I remember that whenever we had it, we would like talk about it and then like like express our feelings and like not escalate it, and then it just wouldn't be like you know shouting at each other, throwing things,
Right.
whatever like stereotypical like married couple fighting
Right.
things are. And it's not because we didn't have quote unquote like things to fight about,
Yeah.
it's just that by not handling it in that way, it was, then it wasn't fiery.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just to coin a phrase, which is a bad saying here, is like the like in a similar vein to like the Ben Shapiro, facts don't care about your feelings. Facts don't fight. People fight, about facts, right? Like there's no fights in the substance of reality. Yeah, Moshe?
Um, just on the point that conflict doesn't, uh, when you said doesn't necessarily exist per se, I guess what do you mean by conflict and then ego intensifying or creating two sharp sides? Because, for instance, we encounter. Wait, did he something just flash across the screen?
Isaac posted something in the chat.
Uh, okay, I don't know how to get
Continue.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, another reason
Like
I don't
in
like
the
chat.
in the Gemara, we counter conflicts all the time, but those aren't or two sides, and then we
Right.
as a third party explain them. But that's seems like very different than what's going on here. So, what exactly do we mean by conflict?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, we need to get more specific here. I just want to give one other example to work with, maybe. So this is the example that Rabbi Moskowitz always gives about. Isaac reminded me of this. Is Rabbi Moskowitz was saying about how like so many fights within marriages are about stupid things, and so the example that he gives is does the toilet paper you put it so that it goes over or under, and like I'm obviously of the opinion that it goes over, and you could prove it from the patent. I wrote about that once. That's how it was designed. The guy who invented it, but whatever. Also, it's objectively right. But he was saying how like people get into fights over that. And the other example he gives is a toothpaste. The toothpaste tube, they're the people who like squeeze it and the people who roll it, and like husbands and wives will get like into fights about that. But like, so his point was just get two toilet paper rolls or just get two toothpaste tubes, So if you look at that, like, I think it's a good example of how all you have in reality is the toilet paper roll, okay? And then you have people who approach it with their preferences, and then their preferences are, well, I prefer it this way and I prefer it that way, and the fight is coming from their preferences conflicting with each other, or they're wanting to be right about it. Or another example that I give is I always having taught in a girls' school for 10 years, and I am going to be sexist here. Girls way more than guys complain about the temperature. Girls are always too cold. And there would often be arguments in the room about it's cold in here. No, it's hot in here. It's cold in here. It's hot in here. And like I trained my students to say that, you're making a logical mistake when you say it is cold in here or it is hot in here, because unless you're talking about an objective scientific fact, like let's say that the temperature, the freezing point of water is a certain objective reality, then you're not really making a statement about a reality. You're making a statement about yourself. Really, what you mean when you say it's cold in here is you mean I'm cold, and the other person is saying I am hot. So if two people are arguing about the temperature and one is saying it's cold and it's hot, they're treating their own subjective feelings as an objective reality. And it's not. Really, each of them is only making a statement about themselves. They're saying, I feel hot and I feel cold. And yeah, there might be a question of how should we resolve this in terms of what should we do? Should we turn up the temperature or not? But they're framing it as an objective dispute that exists in reality, and it really doesn't. So now let's take those examples and then ask, like, what about what Moshe is saying about, let's say, like a machlokus in the Gemara or whatever, are we saying that that's not actually, how would we classify that in light of what we've been talking about here? Yeah, Isaac?
I wouldn't say that like a machlokus Gemara is a conflict.
Correct.
I'd say it's a disagreement. And
Correct. Yeah.
a disagreement doesn't have an emotional charge. It's it's a discussion about fact, not about how people feel.
Right. And disagreement, let's say like two svaras, right? About a set of facts. Yeah. Without an emotional component. Yeah. I do think that is a good distinction here. And I think Mishlei is only talking about the emotional type of conflict. Now, obviously, you can convert a genuine disagreement into an emotional battle, but they're not synonymous and they're not automatic. Yeah, Isaac?
So I wonder if we can say this as like a paradigm, like that, like it's like a way of like thinking about conflict.
Yeah.
That disagreements are like, there's like it's like the factual realm and there's the emotional realm, and conflict only comes from the emotional realm.
Right.
Doesn't come from the factual realm.
The factual realm and the emotional realm, and conflict, as defined here, only comes from the emotional realm. Yeah, and I do think that this is such an important point. See, this is going to be my takeaway, whether or not this is the chidush of the pasuk, which is that treating conflicts as objective realities is the first mistake. Like I think that is the big mistake here. And if you catch yourself doing that, it opens the door so much to, first of all, examining what's going on inside in light of this Mishlei, but then also realizing, okay, there is such a thing as a set of facts, and then we can have a discussion about what to do about those facts or how to solve the problem, but the conflict does not exist. That's a really important thing. Okay, now I'm happy, regardless of what we end up getting from the pasuk. This is what I wanted yesterday. Okay, all right, so let's go on. Okay, let's see if we can just summarize here in terms of the main idea in light of all of this here, right? So let's go back to the pasuk. So the question is, to what extent are these observations we had like the idea of the pasuk or just adjacent to the idea of the pasuk here? The Ish Chema definitely is making the mistake that we've made here. But is the Erech HaPayim recognizing the truth of what we're saying, or is the pasuk talking about something else? Because I don't want to project onto the pasuk, is what I'm saying.
I have a way of reading it that might be projecting onto the pasuk, but
okay, that's fine as long as you recognize that you're doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. For the second half, but I'd say it's maybe like the almost like the volume of the conversation, that the person who's Erech HaPayim quiets the conflict, quiets the quarrel from like a charge thing to, I'd say, more of like almost like a factual discussion.
Right.
Meaning it becomes a common reasoned discussion, which you can only have if it's not, if like the emotions aren't in the conversation.
Right. Right. That is, I feel like that is something along the lines of something we said yesterday. I want to actually just now reread the other summaries of what we said yesterday and just see if it changes in light of what we've just said. So Moshe Koppel, my summary of Moshe Koppel was the subject is two different frameworks for reviewing conflict. One species of ish chema tends to classify all people into two categories: with me or against me, good or bad. This necessarily leads to strife because he's making everyone into a potential opponent, and that can not only accentuate conflicts that do exist in reality. Okay, there's our mistake, but can also generate conflicts that wouldn't have arisen without that imposed dichotomy. The Archepaim tries to remain unbiased and unmoved even by two-sided conflicts. The way such a person operates lends itself to peacemaking in the sense that he's trying to facilitate communication with both sides and is acting as a neutral party. His very presence will quell the conflict. To sum it up, the Ish Chema, to the Ish Chema, there are two kinds of people. To the Erech Chaim, we're all the same kind of person, and the only differences are in ideas which can be discussed. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, just in light of what we were saying. The conflict mediator, and I think Moshe Koppel, without realizing it, because is going with Rabbeinu Yonah. I mean, Rabbeinu Yonah is where we saw that Rabbeinu Yonah is taking this explicitly about a third party attempting to mediate. So I think, I mean, Moshe Koppel's point can still apply to each member of the two sides, but like if you walk into a dispute between two people and you are an ish chema where you automatically view this thing as there are good people and bad people, there's right and wrong, there's me versus them, you are going to side with someone, and you're presupposing that the conflict exists in reality. But one of the tools that the Erech Apayim can use is to see. I don't know. Now I'm confused because I agree with what Moshe is saying. I just don't know if that's what we. Maybe I'm mixing this in the mediator of Rabbeinu Yonah into the point of Moshe. Yeah, Ezra.
So I have a different idea. So I'll wait.
Yeah.
Meaning, is your difficulty with saying that there are conflicts that exist in reality?
No. I'll tell you what I was trying to say. What I was trying to say is that if I'm going to mediate a conflict between two people, and I'm viewing the conflict as an existence in objective reality, as opposed to something that is generated by the subjective perspectives of the parties involved, then I'm part of the problem. But I mean, sorry, I don't remember how I started that sentence. If I'm viewing the conflict as something that exists in reality, as opposed to something that's generated, yeah, I said it the right way, as opposed to something that's generated by the subjective perspectives of the people involved, so then I'm part of the problem because I'm going to be treating it as something real. But if I'm mediating the conflict and I view it as these are two people who are disagreeing about a certain set of objective facts or having feelings about a certain set of objective facts, then I can be better poised to treat this as like a practical problem that needs to be that we need to work out a solution for. And I can keep that distance and not get involved in either side. But I don't know if I'm mixing your idea with the Rabbeinu Yonah idea from yesterday, or if we have lack of clarity in either your idea or the Rabbeinu Yonah idea. I'm not sure. Yeah, so what do you want to say?
So this is a different theory.
Sure.
So I'm going along the lines of what I've seen the Erie say in other pasukim on Erech Apayim.
Yeah.
In that he says that there's two different types of anger. There's anger that you feel, which is not, you can't control that. You can't control like what you feel. Like there are different harbideos, they call them. But you can control how your face reflects it. So even if you're like angry inside, like your blood's boiling, like you could still put on a face of like just like smile and wave kind of face. And if you do that, then like even though like you might still like have a side to it, and you might still be like biased in this quarrel, you'll still quiet the quarrel, in that like you're not gonna like flame the fire like the ish chema will. The ish chema is the person who acts upon it. And that's why like it's a Mishleic, sorry, the person who like reflects it, their anger. And that's why it's a Mishleic thing, and that's why it's a novel idea, because like you think that like, oh, what are you supposed to do? Like you either get angry or you don't get angry. It's like who's this addressing?
Right.
But it's saying that like you can take an action on it. You can decide to be angry and just like pretend like you're not, which there's like a objective good to, in that you're not gonna cause more strife.
Right. Okay. So just one quick question. Did you mean to say Meiri or Malbim?
Malbim.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so let's actually use that as a segue to look at the Malbim and see what he says, because he does make that distinction here. So the Malbim says, Ish chema yagare madan. See, I had him locked and loaded here. Yesh hevdel bein riv uvein madan. So first, he differentiates between a riv, which is in the second half of our pasuk, and madon, which is in the first half. Hamadon hu shemedainim al eze davar. So madon is when two people are quarreling over a thing. V'hadavar shemedainim alav. I don't know if medainim. I'm not. We'll have to see how he's using medainim. I don't know if quarrel is the best way. V'hadavar shemedainim alav hu sibas hariv. And the thing that they're quarreling over is the cause of the conflict. Okay, let's understand that through our filter here. Okay, meaning like meaning not that the conflict exists in reality, but let's say like you accidentally like scuff my car or whatever, and like we go to town on that. Veriv kolel kol meriva shatie, but riv is broader. It includes any conflict at all. So I mean that would include the type of quarrel that we were just any quarrel. V'amar ish midyanim. I had to look this up. Ish midyanim is how you say it. It always feels weird because it sounds like you're condemning, Moshe's wife's people. A man of quarrels, lecharcher riv, is prone to stoking quarrel. A contentious person is prone to stoking quarrel. Misha betivo liton tainos v'limso dinim. So see, this is why I'm in doubt about when he says shemedainim. This sounds like he's talking about okay, well, let me ask you this. Someone who makes whose nature is to make claims and to find dine dinim. What English word does that sound like? As an adjective, a blank person. Starts with an L. Litigious, right? A litigious person, meaning he's always looking to like have like lawsuits and stuff, Who mecharcher riv. He will generate quarrels. Ish chema yagare madon, but a man of wrath. Okay, I don't know how to translate him yet. V'amar lahalan. So this is where he makes the distinction that Ezra was making. Ish af. So later on in Mishlei in 29:21 it says Ish af yagare madon. A man of af incites madon. Ubal chema rav pasha, and a wrathful person. Okay, I don't know how to translate these. A man of af will stir up madon, but a master of chema is great abundant in error. So here's Ezra's distinction. The difference between af and chema is shachema he tivar hakas hapnimi. So chema is the burning of the internal anger. The ha'af hu hakas achitoni, but af is the outward anger. Right. So there you can say about Moshe and Paro that he left Paro Bachari af means that he, like Rambam says in Deos, he acted the part of an angry man, not that he felt angry. Ulkaman ber ish af. So later on in that other pasuk you quoted, it says that in ish af, al yedesh rote laharea lachavero yagari madon. Since he wants to harm his friend, he will stir up madon. V'yimtza eze alila levakeshin, and he'll find some pretext to take him to court. Ubal chema shachamaso bo'eres belibo, and a bal chema whose wrath burns in his heart, but yeser seis with intensified power, who rav pasha, he will make great error. V'yera lachavero below din umadon, and he will harm his fellow without a din and madon. Rak beretzach v'chamas, but only in murder and violence. Upo amar shilafamim. So that was the other pasuk. Upo amar, here amar, he's saying shilafamim ish chema yigari madon, that an ish chema will stir up madon. So this is the guy who's angry inside. V'yirtza lechalos chamaso al yedei hamadon u'v'derech mishpat, and he'll want to vent his anger his wrath through lawsuits and in a manner of mishra. I think he is talking about like court. Umin hamadon halo ye'orer riv, and from madon will that not create quarrel? Anum keshehatzad hasheni hu erech hapayim. But when the other party, oh, here we go. This is now he's giving us the scenario here. When the other party who he's trying to bring a lawsuit against is erech hapayim, is erech hapayim v'yashiv lo ma'ane rach, and responds to him gently, umane rach yashiv chema. And we know from Mishlei 15:1 that a gentle reply turns away anger. Isn't that? Yeah, that was the first pasuk in our parak. Az yashkit riv. So then the riv will be settled or quieted. Ki yifayes oso b'dvarim rachim, because he'll appease the person with soft words. V'hagam sheba hamadon ayde chema, even though the madon, the litigiousness came through chema, through inner wrath. Yashuv chema v'yishkot hariv. He will turn back the wrath and quiet the quarrel. Wow. Okay, so that was a lot of stuff. I get the impression here like he's overcomplicating things, but he is also doing what I said that I wanted to do, which is to pin this down to a specific decision-making scenario. Okay, so let's just summarize the Malbim. I kind of went off. I seized on the Malbim because Ezra mentioned the distinction, but it's entirely possible Ezra has a simpler way of reading this. I just want to get this down though. So Madon equals a legal battle. Okay, Riv equals any quarrel. Chema equals internal wrath. Af equals external display of wrath, of anger. Okay, so an ish. See, I see what's happening, by the way, with my keyboard. I don't know if you noticed this. It's flashing on the screen as though I'm clicking on something else. Every like few seconds, it'll flash. Let's watch for it. And that's what's interrupting my typing. So I feel like it's a software thing. Okay, it's not doing it, but okay, let's see. An internally wrathful person will find a pretext to sue someone, and as a way of venting his anger. Okay, but an erech apayim, who maintains a calm outward demeanor, regardless of how he's feeling inside, will respond with a ma'aneh rach. Oh, now it's not happening at all. With a ma'aneh rach, and will succeed in calming, or in like not avoiding, I guess, nipping the quarrel, the quarrel in the bud, by calming the internal wrath of the ish chema. Oh, see, it did that. Yeah, ish chema. So frustrating. Ish chema. Okay. Yeah. So Ezra was saying, I'm just gonna say what you were saying, and then we'll see if we can either differentiate or meld the two, is that one way to avoid getting into fights is to display outward calm, regardless of what you're feeling. And I guess the implication is, since displaying your anger adds fuel to the fire, okay, by not reacting angrily, or better yet, by reacting calmly, you can diminish quarrels before they start. Is that what you're saying, Ezra?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's much, this is a good example about how like the Malbim is kind of forced to come up with a complicated idea like this because he wants to differentiate between every single word and incorporate every single word into the pasuk. So this is like a good exemplification of our derech and the Malbim's derech, which is that that we do care about nuances in the language, but we will only care about them if they help the idea, and we won't forcibly assert that the idea is absolutely contingent on understanding every nuance. Whereas the Malbim does that, and he gets creative stuff, but it can also overcomplicate things. I think it's a really, really good showcasing of that. Yeah. Now, speaking of the Meiri, let's go to the Meiri and see what he says. So he says, Ish chema yigari madon ve'erech b'ayim yashkid riv amar shabal chema yigari madon ratzlomer ye'ariv hamadon. So I had to actually like look into this. Ye'ariv hamadon means he will. I think ye'ariv here is like to mix, like a taroves. He will become entangled in other people's quarrels, like the dog pasuk with the ears. Because a little cause will cause his anger to flare up. Until he exposes or reveals or makes prominent the riv, and the chema burns in all ways. Sometimes yigare means the quarrel itself, especially when it has a base. Al tiskar bam, don't like incite strife with them. Sometimes it means it'll stir up. I will pit one Egyptian against the other, or Egyptian against Egyptian. Targumo v'igari mitzrayim b'mitzrayim. Nemar hena yigari madon ratzlomer ye'ariv haktadav hariv. He'll get involved in ktad and riv. O pirusho hasatav havara, or it means inciting and firing up. Como megare es hariv. V'erchpaim yashkid riv ki kshiarech apo v'lo ya'ane l'shaito. So when he prolongs his anger and doesn't respond immediately, so this is an interesting thing. Then the quarrel will fade away on its own. All of this is telling you to prolong your anger and like to delay your anger and to conquer it. I think Rashi actually has something good here also that's similar. Rashi says, someone who does not have any restraint on his spirit to prolong his wrath will incite quarrel. That's what we said from the other Rabbeinu unit yesterday. He's not quick to take revenge and to quarrel. Yashkit riv, he will settle the anger. The quarrel. Shehu kale v'shakit me'elav. It'll be quiet and it'll dispel on its own. I can't help but quote Marcus Aurelius here. This is what I've been using for the last couple of years, and this works wonders. Assuming this opens. 10 days. Yeah, he says in book 4, chapter 16, within 10 days you will appear a god, even to those to whom today you seem a beast or baboon, if you return to your principles and your reverence of reason. So forget, we wouldn't say you appear a god, but I found that if I'm really angry about something, okay, and it's an interpersonal thing, I set a reminder that for 10 days, okay, that I don't confront the person or address it until 10 days pass. And then if 10 days pass and I'm still feeling that way, then I'll bring it up. But many times, like my own feelings will quell and I won't go into it again, or the issue will pass or it'll change, you know. So I think like just as a habit strategy, I think that's a good way of implementing what Rashi and the Meiri are saying, which is you have to just be able to delay, you know, and you have to come up with strategies for doing that. Okay, I just want to read this Derek Nister, even though we don't have time to do it. Derek Nister, Kara Ish Chema Hamis Nagid Hachoshev Laharos. I had to look this up. Ashios, which is the bulwarks or the walls, an ashia. Did not know that word. Ashios HaTorah, the Mofsav HaKosvim. So this is a misnagid, not the Hasidic type, but the anti-Hasidic type, but the one who like tries to oppose the foundations of Torah with false proofs. But the Chacham who's settled in his mind and is not quick to respond. Yaniach rogzo, he will set aside his rage, v'yashkid rivo, and quell the quarrel. V'yodiuhu ki ein b'chol mofsav mofes amiti, and he'll tell the guy, none of your proofs have any truth. Asher yuchol ledachos bo achas mikol hapinos hatorios. None of your ideas have any proofs that can push aside the Torah foundations. Kamoshi Bar. Okay, so he's not really talking about how to do that, but food for thought. Okay, so I feel like we got this is a good example of what I said about Mishlei many times, which is that it's not necessarily about getting a pshat. It's that in American proverb, it's an idea delivered on a silver platter where you don't think about it and you just get to implement it. In Mishlei, by forcing you to work through it, the thinking about the idea and the discussing the idea and the topic is what perfects you. And even if we don't have a pshat at the end, where I feel like we do have a pshat here, but if we don't have a pshat at the end, it's the process of thinking about it that is the benefit. And I feel like we got a lot of benefit thinking about the quarrel and the riv and anger today. So I'm happy about that. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for coming. And next week, God willing, I will be there in person again. All right.
Thank you.
Later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.